Welcome to Tech Talk Live. This is June of 2015, and we're going to talk about the SDK. Oli, who normally hosts Tech Talk Live, asked me to assume my old duties of hosting so that he can present. So I'm happy to do that. Want to run through a few quick activities. We are having an Alfresco Activity Day in Paris next week. It's getting near full, so if you want to attend that, if you're going to be in the Paris area, make sure to sign up today, because it is getting near capacity. The next Tech Talk Live is the first Wednesday in July, which is July 1st. That is, we're still working on the speaker, but do plan on it. We're going to have it on July 1st. Next, office hours. I've been working on scheduling one with the documentation team. They've changed their name to the user assistance team. They do a lot more than documentation these days, and they've agreed to take your questions. So send me any questions you have. The challenge is with summer holidays, my vacation and their vacation, we're figuring out the right day, but we're going to do that pretty soon. We are also working on organizing a developer meetup in Eastern Europe. One of our new partners there has offered at one of their offices, so we'll either be in Romania or Hungary, try and figure out which location. If you have a preference, let us know. Community@alfresco.com is the best way to reach us. We're shooting for July, but it might slip to next September. So that's going to happen fairly soon. Last big announcement is Alfresco Summits in November in New Orleans, and the call for papers. We hope to get that announcement out next week. We're getting close. So within the next week or two, expect the call for papers. Please prepare your presentation. Get an idea of what you want to present of your submission and get that submitted. We'll get that posted fairly soon. So with that, let's introduce our panel. So we have Oli Zhelskov, our developer evangelist. I'm just going to introduce you guys all really quick because most of you have been on before. We have Gabriele Colombro, our product manager for the core platform and the API. He's responsible for the SDK. And we have Martin Berglund, our developer experience architect. Correct me if I get your titles wrong, gentlemen. So, our developer platform architect, that's what it is. So, we've got a packed hour to discuss the SDK, and Gabriele was going to start talking about the product management vision for the SDK, but he does have another meeting, so we're gonna give him the first go, and we won't be offended when he leaves shortly after he's done with his presentation, so his portion anyway. So I'll let you go, Gab.
Thank you so much, Richard, and especially thanks for giving me the opportunity to just join quickly, and sorry about having to leave, but I think it's actually, pretty indicative of the changes that happen in the developer platform world on the Alfresco side. The fact that, I just really want to introduce, again, a little bit of the vision from the product management standpoint around the developer platform, and especially the SDK for today. And I think, again, I'm happy to then hand over to Martin and Ole in a very symbolic way, as I'm handing over, the SDK, which used to be a little bit of a single-man project, including, obviously, the wonderful help from the community. But that is now, a very key area of investment in Alfresco, and we hired people like Ole and Martin, as you might have seen into previous posts in the developer blog. So this actually gives me a very good segue towards what I want to introduce to you, which is the Alfresco SDK 2.10. As you might have seen through the announcement, we have released that about 2 weeks ago. And I think the most important aspect, again, from an Alfresco standpoint, from a product management standpoint, is that the Alfresco SDK, it is now a fully supported project from Alfresco. You might say, and you're correct, that actually even the Alfresco 2.0.0 release is fully supported. The main difference here is that we actually went through a much higher degree of testing, as well as we have a team dedicated to it, and we made sure that it basically became a first-class product in the Alfresco portfolio of deliverables. So we made sure that there are, up-to-date documentation. I don't know, Ole, if you want to maybe scroll to the second slide. Documentation, a release process, tags, announcement. We have, a grown investment on that area. So really, this is not.
Sorry, Gab. So I was looking at Ole's screen, and we're still seeing the first slide, and you're not on presenter mode.
So it is.
There it goes. Now we're on the second screen.
That's good.
And I stopped it. Hang on. So.
Hangout.
Is that better?
No.
No?
That's the third one. Just go to the one before. I think I'm going to let you talk about that. Slide number 2. I'm seeing slide number 2.
It should be. And is it in presenter mode for you guys?
Yes,
no, we're seeing the other side. I think you have dual monitor. Okay. We're seeing the wrong monitor.
Just leave it there. It's fine. So absolutely, as I mentioned, it used to be a community project. It's now a fully supported product. Actually, if you look in that link that we have posted in the slide, so the Alfresco product support status, you'll find out that the SDK has now made it, again, as a first-class product in there, and you can always refer to that page, like for any other Alfresco product, to know exactly which version of the SDK is actually in which support status. I'm obviously referring to enterprise customers and partners. But again, our promise is that moving forward, you'll have a clear understanding of the life cycle and evolution of the SDK like any other product in Alfresco. Last but not least, this hopefully will mean that we don't have to wait 3 to 5 months like happened with Alfresco 5.0 to have a functional supported SDK release for it. Said that, this was really the introductory hat, and as I said, I would like to hand this off to Ole, Richard, and Martin that are going to speak more in detail about what the SDK entails and how can you be uber productive on Alfresco with it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Gab, for.
I'm gonna have to drop off, so thanks. But please make sure that you send feedback either directly to me, to Martin, or even through Ole as a developer evangelist. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gab. So I think that I know what's wrong with my screen sharing, and the issue is that I'm not sharing the entire screen. So this should hopefully give some more. How about now?
Much better.
Much better. Okay. So note to self: don't just share the application, share the entire screen. So as Gab said, we now have the SDK is treated as part of the product, which is really, really great. So I want to talk a bit about, well, I haven't even discussed what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to do a presentation of what's new with the SDK. I'm going to talk about that for 10 or 15 minutes. Then I'm going to hand the word off to Martin, and he can do a demo of creating a project, seeing it in Eclipse, see some of the new hot reloading stuff we've done, and all the new features. So we're going to spend a lot of time on demo, which is really the cool thing, and I'm crossing my fingers that the demo guys are with us today. So without further ado, what's new? Well, SDK is part of the product. That's a great thing, and we have the support from product management and the documentation team and everything, so that's really, really cool. In the new release, we have greatly improved the rapid application development and hot reloading support. I could talk about that probably for half an hour on how we implemented that, but the juicy bits of this is whenever you run a Maven compile or save in Eclipse, you will actually end up with having refresh web scripts and clearing the dependency cache that will actually be called directly out of the box. So we also have improved out-of-the-box experience, which means generate a project, run it. There's a batch script or a bash script that you can just run that will start up the whole thing. And after it's running, you will end up with a project that's running, of course, but you can also import it directly into Eclipse or IntelliJ IDEA. And as soon as you do that, you can just start hacking away, and everything will be hot reloaded, everything works, so that's really nice and great. In the all-in-one project, we've added support for Solar 4. Previously, we didn't get that into the 2.0 release, but we finally have Solar 4 in the SDK. We finished off the regression testing, or not finished off, but we've included regression testing. We wanted to have that in 2.0, but it wasn't quite there yet. So now we actually have regression testing, and what regression testing means is that it actually fires off the entire share PO project, which is one of the internal things that we use at Alfresco to automatically test share and all extensions and see that it actually works. And what this means for you is that you can actually go in and run this PO test. So it will run the test suite, and you can see if your extension went in and broke something that's out of the box functionality. So that's great, useful info for you as a developer to know if you've broken something or not. We have JavaScript compression, which is something that's been requested numerous times, where the SDK will go in and minify the JavaScript files, something that usually would have to either add manually into the SDK or do by hand, but that's done automatically now. One of the big things that's changed now is that we require the JDK 8, and this is a new thing because the 5.0D release and 5.01 is actually built against JDK 8. So this means that you need to use JDK 8 to work with the SDK from now on out, and it also we needed to do that because the JDK 7 is end of life. The last thing is completely rewritten documentation. Martin has done a huge job on writing official documentations on docs.alfresco.com, where we have complete guides on setting up from scratch, getting all the environment up and running, importing into Eclipse, importing into IntelliJ IDEA, and how everything just ties in together. And this is an area that we continuously will improve on, and we have upgrade documentation on how to upgrade from one version to another, which is just great. So what's already in the SDK? This is not something that's new. This is just to add to what's already there. We have the all-in-one archetype, which brings in the repository, Solar, and Share. We also have the Alfresco AMP archetype and Share AMP archetypes as well. So this will allow you to either build an AMP in isolation, or you can bring in our all-in-one, which will bring the full stack of everything. You can run the project with an embedded Tomcat and H2 database for testing, which is quite cool. So you just can either run, use the batch script or bash scripts, and it will start up everything that you need. So there's no need to deploy to a Tomcat server or anything. This is all built in. Basic hot reloading, which is one of the things that we greatly improved on, and we have remote unit testing or integration tests, which actually means you can start up the repository and you can run unit tests, fire them off against the running repository. Normally, if you do a integration test and run that, you would have to spin up the whole application, run the test, and then shut it down again, which takes a while because Alfresco is just a bit slow to start. There's a lot of things going on. But with the remote unit testing, that's something where you get the response instantly. So if you're working from whatever ID, IntelliJ or Eclipse, then you'll have the responses instantly. And of course, full lifecycle management, where you can you end up with the basic thing, having a reproducible way of compiling and building and everything, and you end up with the produced artifacts where it actually just it will do everything for you, including testing.
Hey, Oli.
So yeah.
So a couple questions from chat, and I forgot to announce at the beginning, or mention at the beginning, if you're watching the video and you want to interact with us, go to chat.alfresco.com, and you can join our chat room there. So there were a lot of positive feedback on the productization of the SDK, that it's got official engineering support from a whole panel of people. It's a big difference in how we work. And Boris, being the champion of community contributions, want to point out that how much of the work on the SDK came from the community. And that's a great contribution, Boris. And we're very grateful for Oli's work before he was an Alfresco employee, as well as a lot of other community participants, Axel and some of the others, Bindu especially. There was a question about whether there would ever be an enterprise-only feature in the SDK, or whether we'd have a separate SDK for enterprise-only, for the Enterprise Edition. And Gab had to go, but my understanding is that's not really, we don't think that makes much sense. What do you understand about that?
That would not make sense at all to have enterprise-only features in the SDK, mainly because the SDK is built around the Community Edition, and Enterprise is cut from the Community Edition at some point, and it adds on a top of features, but we actually we want it to be the same, because if we have two separate SDKs, then we have a lot of more maintenance to do, and with all the new things that's going on in releaseability, which is stuff that I'm hoping we can discuss during the Tech Talk Live in July, we will hopefully we will end up with some nice additions to Enterprise and how that works. So Enterprise-only features in the SDK, well, we have the support for running Enterprise, which is, we could say, well, that's an Enterprise-only feature because you need to be able to build against Enterprise. But features that will be only for Enterprise, no, that's not going to happen. Whatever we do in the SDK will be available both for Enterprise and Community, unless we need to interact with some closed-off feature that's inside Enterprise, but I don't see that coming. We have a lot of other stuff we want to achieve before diving into that end. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it's most of the features that are enterprise only in Alfresco are there to reduce the need for custom development, and so they don't really lend themselves to an SDK. Clustering, encryption, content, encryption at rest, things like that. Though we were talking about, it might make, there's a separate project on GitHub for the examples. So to keep the SDK as tight as possible, it's one project, and if you go to GitHub Alfresco's team, there's an SDK examples project, and in there's a lot of examples that people can pull from. There might be an example related to enterprise-only functionality. Boris mentioned that the content store selector, having a picker would be convenient. But it's not core SDK functionality, and we all feel strongly that core SDK functionality should work in the Community Edition and should be available to anybody who wants it.
Yeah, definitely. So were there any other questions that I didn't address?
Is there any conflict running the SDK with Java 8 for deployment in Alfresco 4.1 and 4.2? Because Alfresco only requires Java 8 in Alfresco 5. So, but my understanding is you can run Java 8 with previous versions of Alfresco. Does that work to have Alfresco on Java 8 and the SDK on Java 8 in Alfresco 4.2?
That is something we would have to test a bit more in depth about the compatibility between those. But one thing that I've noticed that you mentioned 4.0 specifically. SDK 2.0 is not compatible with 4.2 or 4.1, but we are working on finishing off the work that I did at the hackathon last year. We have an experimental 1.2 release that will actually bring in all these nice features that we have with hot reloading and everything, and bring that into the 1x branch. So we will have a 1.2 release, which features most of what we've done now. Some of it can't work, but most of the core things about hot reloading and everything will just work, and that's probably the way that we will get around supporting those versions. And even if we need to do it, we might do a 2.01 release as well. But that's all in the pipeline. But for now, I would not be 100% sure that it would work using SDK 2.1 against a previous version of Alfresco.
And Boris points out that Alfresco 4.1 is Java 6. It doesn't even run in Java 7. Alfresco 4.2 runs in Java 7. I thought that some people got working in Java 8, but I could be wrong on that. And now Alfresco 5.0 is Java 8. So the SDK, as Boris said, currently doesn't support the previous versions, but hopefully we can add that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Sorry, go ahead. That's all the questions.
Okay, so improved out-of-the-box experience with RAD. Well, we have the new goals in the Alfresco Maven plugin that will go in and refresh web scripts and clear dependency cache. There's no to very little configuration needed if you import the project into your favorite IDE. Basically, you run the project, you import it into Eclipse and start working. And in IDEA, you need to do just a little bit of configuration, but it's more or less 2 or 3 clicks. And the completely rewritten docs, and less than 5 minutes, 15 minutes setup, and that's excluding downloading the entire internet from Maven. So if you have all the artifacts downloaded into a Maven repository, then it will take roughly around 15 minutes from you generate the project to you're up and running. You can start writing in your code, which is really, really nice. Of course, if you have to download the entire net via Maven, it takes probably around 30 minutes or so, but your mileage may vary on that. So a bit on hot reloading, the state of it as it is right now. You can change the Java class, you can change a web script or a free market template, you can change client-side JavaScript as well as server-side JavaScript for web scripts and whatnot. We have CSS and translation files. You can even add and remove or modify web scripts, and this will work out of the box. Stuff that's not hot reloaded as right now is add or remove, modify models and workflows. That doesn't work because it's bootstrapped into the application, and we still can't add, remove, modify Spring Beans. So if you're introducing a new class with a new bean or changing a bean definition, then you still need to restart to get the whole thing reloaded and everything. Properties, that's not the translation properties, that's system properties, which still needs to restart. So we're not entirely there of having a no restart model, but we are definitely working towards it. And that's some of the things we hope to change in the future and see at least the Spring Beans part and how we can tackle that one. There is some discussion about using JRebel for getting around the Spring Beans, but I've heard reports about the way that we work with the beans internally in Alfresco. It gives some weird results in the end, but it's something that we definitely want to look into on how we can tackle that problem. So with the regression testing, well, we already covered that. You can see if you broke something. But one other thing that we added into the mix is that it's easy for you to create your own functional tests or regression tests, what you want to call them. But basically having a test that goes in and tests the UI, it launches up a browser and it clicks all the buttons and everything. And I'm hoping that the time allows Martin to actually talk about that in a bit. Should also say to the regression testing that it is still work in progress. We don't yet include the full test suite of the CRPO, mainly because it's not entirely complete with the integration and there are some issues. Martin, you know more about the state of it, but we have the basic test suite up and running, and we will keep adding on to it as we progress with the releases. So to circle back to the supported versions, we have the 201 release that supports 501 and 50D. 200 supports 50 and 50C, and 1.101 that supports 4.2. You may try and mix these up together and it will probably work and you might encounter some issues, but this is the officially supported versions against which SDK you should be working with against which versions of Alfresco. So,
you can sorry, Ola, you can mention also the upgrade path is documented now for 2.0 to 2.1.
Yeah, so if you have an existing project and you want to upgrade, there's an upgrade path and documentation on how to update from the old one to the new one. So generating a project, well, it's as easy as just typing in Maven archetype generates and filter by Alfresco. It generates a project, it asks for a few questions, but that's mainly just the group ID and artifact ID. You run the projects, and you can just, if you don't want to use any IDE, you can just use Maven compile or Maven process resources, which will actually, as soon as you've done a change and run this command, it will trigger all the hot reloading and make sure that it's loaded into the application. So if you don't want to use IntelliJ IDEA or Eclipse, then this is a good feature to have. And you can just import it into your favorite IDE. So, demo time.
Just before the demo, Oli?
Yeah.
2 quick questions. First is on the it looks like it's the SDK uses the Maven install goal instead of the integration test goal. Is there a reason for that? Is there an advantage to using Maven install instead of the integration test?
So for the all-in-one project, we use install to make sure that all the artifacts are available. But this is mostly leftovers from previous versions, and it's something we want to clean up and make it a bit more tidy and see how we can do it. But right now, all-in-one hooks into the install lifecycle. The AMP archetypes hooks into the integration tests. I would assume or suspect that we could do the same with the all-in-one and run that on the integration test phase, but that's something we need to look into.
Excellent. And there, Bagias asks if the community has built add-ons that support Spring annotations. Will the SDK plan to support those? And he pointed a GitHub project, Alfresco-MVC. You familiar with that project?
I'm not familiar with that project. I'll have to look into it. But I know that Bindu has done a lot of work during the hackathon last year. He worked a lot on bringing annotations to the SDK as well, to have annotated web scripts and behaviors and stuff like that. But that is something we ultimately, instead of adding this as a feature to the SDK, we want to fix that in the product. And I know that Gab is working a lot internally with the release agility team on how we load modules and everything. So I'm hoping that that's something we can we haven't decided on anything yet, I should say, but that's something that we are working on and looking into, because we want to, instead of hacking around this with the SDK, we want to fix it in the product and do it that way instead.
Reasonable approach, good approach. The does the SDK support separate share and repo server startups?
So it does. You have two options for doing this. You can go in and use the AMP archetype, so you can create a project for the repository and one for share, and you can run those independently of each other. And that's one way to go with it. If you use all-in-one, you get everything in one container, and it's one command that will start up both. And unfortunately, with the all-in-one, there's no way to start or stop each of them separately, because it is running on the same Tomcat server. We could look into reloading the context, but we've had mixed results with that in the past. What I would suggest doing instead is actually take all-in-one and split it up, because one of the things to remember about archetypes is that this is a preferred way or a suggested way to run your projects. You could easily go in and say, okay, so this is what Alfresco suggests. I could easily go in and create my own. So in that case, I would say take all-in-one, split it up, take the repository and Solar and put that into a project for its own, and then take share and what those modules related to share and put that into a project of its own and change the ports, and that's it, and then you're good to go. So that's my suggestion for that.
Excellent. So last question before we hurry on, and I'm laughing a bit because I know that Gab has very strong feelings, but when will it support OSGI extensions?
Again, about the whole release agility and modules, that is something that we are looking at it. We are hoping to bring something into to the product, but it is still in research mode. I don't have any news, anything specifically to say, or anything publicly to say about it. Just know that we are looking into it. If you have any suggestions, please let us know. But it is something we are researching right now.
Though maybe it's too early to say, but in our research, it sounds like OSGI probably won't be the approach we pick. But we're looking at improving our extension module, our extension system. But there's some downsides to increasing the amount of in-process extensions. We want to make it easier to extend the product in other ways.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother discussion, and I'm hoping again that we will have Gab and the release agility team on Tech Talk Live in a month from now to discuss this very topic, amongst other things, because there's some of the areas where we could use some feedback from the community and whatnot. But I know that a lot of work is being done internally.
Excellent. So we'll hurry on. I realize we got a little behind schedule, so yeah, go ahead with your demo.
Oh, you're still on mute.
All right. Do I have presentation?
Yeah, you're in control, Martin.
Now? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Share my whole desktop is what I want to do. Right, so what I'm going to be doing now is actually pretending that I am a systems integrator, and I'm starting a new Alfresco project. So, and I want to create, I want a project that can create WAR files with customization. So I'm going to use the all-in-one archetypes. So the first thing I'm doing here is running a Maven command that can use one of these 3 archetypes that is provided by the SDK. So I'm just running that now. I'm filtering on org Alfresco, so when I'm hitting Maven Central, I'm not getting all archetypes ever created. So what I want to do here is use the all-in-one, or AIO, that is sometimes referred to. So I'm just going to pick the first one here. I want to use SDK 210, and that's the default here. I'm going to supply my company domain, and my super CMS system is what I'm going to call the artifact here. And new for 2.1 is the possibility to supply your own Java package name here, so you don't clash with other Java libraries and stuff. So I now got my new multi-Maven module project here with everything I need. So what I want to do is just demonstrate how you can quickly, with rapid application development features, develop on both the Alfresco repository side and share side. So the first thing I want to do is basically just kick off an instance with what I got here, and I'm going to do that in another window here. So still have the project here, so I'm going to kick off Maven here and tell it to run a profile. It's called run because it kicks off an embedded Tomcat and deploys the Alfresco War Share War with whatever customizations I happen to have in the project. And when you generate it from the archetype, it actually has the custom repository web script, and it has an iCow page. So I'm now starting it up, and it's going to build an Alfresco repository war with the custom repository AMP that's part of the project. So it takes that AMP and applies it on top of, you could actually see that here. It applies that AMP on the Alfresco war, and it builds the Alfresco war. And after that, it's going to do the similar thing with share. So it's going to take the share here, standard share war, and apply a share AMP to it. And it's going to create my custom share war. And as it moves on, it's going to deploy those 2. Here it's now deploying these apps to the embedded Tomcat server. So you got the repo, you got share, and it's going to pick up the Alfresco Solar war from Maven repo. So that war is not part of the all-in-one. All-in-one just brings in the Solar configuration, and then it grabs the war from the Maven repo. So here now we can see it's kicking off the Apache Tomcat 7 here, and it's going to start up, and it's going to start creating here a database. So it's using H2. We can see that that's the flat file database. So as you've seen so far, we haven't downloaded Alfresco and installed it. So I haven't started to Google and download Alfresco and kick off the full installer. Everything is driven from Maven here. And if you go to and look at what files you have here, you're going to see this new alf data dev directory where you're going to have your metadata in an H2 database. You're going to have your Solar indexes here, and eventually your content store here. Yeah, it's popped up right now. So it takes a while to kick it off the first time, but the whole idea with rapid application development is I kick it off once, and then I can go into Eclipse and start my development. So it's doing the patching, it starts all the subsystems, and it's going to kick off share eventually here also. And I just want to let it finish so I can show you what we're going to work with. it's soon going to be finished here. It's coming to the last bits here. It's going to kick off the 8080 port in Apache Tomcat here and make it ready for us to use it. So this is quite neat. So we now have actually Alfresco here, the repo, and as you know, Alfresco Explorer has been removed. So what I'm going to see here when I hit Alfresco is just basically a page with some links and stuff. I'm just going to wait until it says there's 8080. Let's see how far we got here. Yeah, okay, so I'm running on 5.0D, basically community. If I click here, I should be able to access share also. Let's just wait. It takes a bit longer. It's going to generate all the UI stuff. It's going to log in here. So this embedded solution is just looking like you install the full installation of Alfresco from the packages. And the extra thing you have with 2.1, which I will show you in a second, is also Solar. If it's going to...
And we no camera tricks here. We did not speed up the video. It is so much faster and easier than it used to be.
Yeah. So Solar, let's have a look at that. So you can see a Solar 4. Right, so what do I want to show? Have this is a web script, a repo web script that comes with the all-in-one archetype. So I'm going to kick off Eclipse, which I've already done. And what I'm going to do is a Maven project. So I'm going to import. Exist is an existing Maven project, obviously. I'm going to navigate to where I have this stuff. And what I want to do is I want to step into where the top POM is, basically where the top project is. It's a multi-Maven project, so just step into the parent folder. Finish that off. First time you run this, is going to chew here a bit and do stuff for a bit, for a couple of minutes. The second time you do it like now, it should just take 15-30 seconds or something, and then it should say that everything is fine for us to start doing some coding.
And we could add that the approach we've taken here is to generate the project from the command line and then import it into Eclipse. You can generate the project from within Eclipse, but if your environment isn't set up, then Eclipse has to download all the dependencies. And I've seen a number of issues where Eclipse can't handle the amount of dependencies because it takes a while. It could take 20 minutes to download all the dependencies, and Eclipse doesn't always handle that very well. The other reason we do this is to eliminate the troubleshooting, because a lot of issues we have with people and customers and partners and community, they get into us and say, well, we've done all these stuff, we imported and it doesn't work, and it turns out usually to be an environment issue where they have things like the wrong Java version or the wrong Maven version, and these errors don't always present themselves inside Eclipse. So by running it directly from the command line, all the environment is up and running. You have the correct version of everything. So that's just a generally good approach to get up and running.
Yeah, that's right. So here you can see this is, I'm now looking at the web script that I was just trying out here. So this is kind of simulating a situation where I'm now working with this web script and I want to start doing some changes to it. If I'm doing stuff in Eclipse that looks weird, it's because I'm usually IDEA, but I'm using Eclipse today because it's a smoother experience at the moment. I don't actually have to configure anything. As you've seen, so far I haven't done any specific settings in Eclipse. I'm just importing the project, starting using it. So, right, so what's going to happen here now if I free market template, SDK. If I now add that and just do save, it's going to start doing stuff where I'm running here. It's going to refresh the web app. So if I go over here and do a refresh, I can immediately see my change. So I can continue like that. If I go to the JavaScript side, just do SDK JavaScript. Let it do its refresh. Go over here, and you can see it's really quite quick compared to what it used to be. And this web script also uses a Java controller. It uses both the JavaScript and Java controller. You can see this is from Java. So if I look up my little Java controller, I should be able to show you that also hot reloading of Java stuff is working via Spring Loaded here. So I'm going to save that, and hopefully when I switch over here, I'm going to see the Java thing. So that's quite cool. So that was an existing web script. Now, let's say I am getting some requests to, can you create another web script here? We need another one. So I'm going to create a new script here, call it tech5, and just see how easy it is to start adding stuff here. And just changing the names here a bit. The name is basically the ID of the web script, and then I'm going to have to give it another URL here to make sense of it. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to just change it a bit here. TTL SDK 2, and I'm going to keep from Java here so you can kind of figure out what's going to happen. And I'm going to change this whole thing here to SDK to test or something. So now here, and just try, what do you think going to happen? It's not going to work unless, oh, it's working. What? Okay, it shouldn't work.
That is the first time I've ever seen somebody surprised that their demo worked.
Oh, I changed the wrong. Did you see that?
Yeah,
I
missed that earlier.
Yeah, it's the demo devil is starting. I changed the wrong descriptor. Now, okay, so what you're getting here is you can't find it from Java. So what that means is that
I'm impressed that Wyreg was fast enough on IRC that he saw he pointed out the problem before you got there, paying close attention.
We're gonna send him an Alfresco kind of sticker or something, right? So what the problem is here is that I'm actually not able to. I would have to create a new bean with TTL there and start implementing it to return something, and that's not possible with hot reloading, as we saw Ole explaining. So what I would have to do here is just basically remove this stuff and do a save, and if everything is cool now, it should start working. Cool. Let's just be sure. I'm gonna just do this because it looked like it come from. I'm not deviating from my script. It works. Okay. All right. So that's the repository side. Basically, what happens here, this repo amp is being changed, and you might be wondering, how is it actually picking up these changes? So the runner is the project that's actually launching Tomcat with all the Alfresco repo, share, Solar. The way it's picking up these changes is via something called a virtual web app. So I can tell Tomcat when it starts, I actually got more files that and folders that you should pick up than just the Alfresco target Alfresco war here. So I got this other directories here that you should pick files from. So whenever I do a compile, basically saving it here and compiling, it's putting my new stuff in target classes, and when I refresh the web app, Tomcat will pick stuff from there. That's how it works. And let's move over to share now. So what do I have there? So in share, I actually got this cool share page here. So this is a hybrid dynamic page or Dojo page. It's by this web script. So the content on this hybrid HTTP page is coming from this web script called simple page. And it's going to display a simple page that I added to share. It looks like this, so it's very rudimentary. So what I want to do is start with this. Okay, somebody told me change title and layout. Change the layout from horizontal to vertical. So how do I do that? So I'm going to go into the share amp, which has this so-called iCow page. If you don't know iCow, it's a new development framework that has lots of stuff in share is built on, and it's based on Dojo. So here is the way you create pages is just to create a web script with a JSON model in it. Let's see where I am now.
Oh, it's under comp.
Yeah. Yeah, all right, thank you. Right, so the layout is going to be in here. So I'm going to open this file. So the title is here. I'm just going to set it to SDK and layout. So it's now going to reload this share Spring web script, Spring Surf web script. And it's going to update the page to my changes here if everything is cool.
And actually, one thing to add on this is in share, it actually goes in and clears the dependency cache as well as refreshing the web scripts. And the reason we do this is in the SDK 2.0 we disabled the dependency cache, but that trick didn't give consistent results. You would see the header would drop off random times. You would see that you got random Dojo errors and all kind of crazy errors would happen without any meaning at all. So we disabled all this and moved to an approach where we go in and refresh web scripts and clear dependency cache, which is much more reliable, but it takes just a second or two to actually complete the task. But it gives a more smooth experience when you're developing, that things just work instead of having some weird errors where you have to restart the whole application just to get into a state where you don't get an error page.
Yeah, that's right. Very good. So in this page, we have two widgets here, a logo widget and another template widget. It's basically a Dojo widget here with some Alfresco stuff in it. So what I want to do is simulate that I now need to change this widget a bit. So I'm going to go in here where I got the source for it. So let's start with, I want to fix the background on it a bit. So I'm going to add, so you can see the resource dependency cache clear background light blue. Might seem rudimentally changes here, but it demonstrates the ID. So that should take effect immediately here. So you see that change. If I continue here, let's say I got the template for the page widget here, and it has the greeting, basically what's in here, hello from. I'm going to add another greeting here, greeting 2, and that means I'm going to have to update the Dojo class for the widget. So I'm going to go in here, going to add another variable here, and I happen to know that there is a label and they are in here. I'm going to change properties so you can see that works, SDK prop update. So I've done a lot of updates here now, so I want to see all that happen here now via the dependency cache clearing. Right, so I can see all the stuff I added there. So SDK prop up and new label, so that should come from that hello test, and that was here new label. So you can see all that's picked up. So this basically demonstrates how you can have rapid application development on the repo side and share side. What I'm going to show you now, it's actually, I'm going to jump out here for a bit and talk about regression testing. So I'm going to restart this a bit. So as Ole mentioned, Alfresco is obviously doing testing internally of the share UI. So you can make use of that. I know a lot of system integrators, in bigger projects, they start writing tests for share standard functionality, just to be sure that when you guys make bigger customizations to the UI, that you don't break standard functionality. We now have a profile that you can add here, regression testing, and this profile will run a whole number of tests on the share standard UI to make sure you haven't broken anything. It takes a bit of time to actually run that, so I'm just going to show by running the login page test here. So it's going to kick it off, everything. It's going to do the normal run that we did before. So it starts everything up. Then it kicks off via test ng. It kicks off these share page object tests. So these page objects, there are a number of these page objects available out of the box. If you look at the share amp, it brings in dependencies from Alfresco share page objects and share page tests. So there's two different things. You create these share page objects, and then you can create tests with them. So, and we're going to look, after this has started, we're also going to look at functional tests of your own pages. So while this is kicking off, I'm going to show you some code for how you test that demo iCow page that I showed you. So this page is here in the share amp. There is an example test here that you can look at, and it's in here. So there's a demo page test, and there's a page object for this iCow page, and it gives you an example of how you can build your own share page objects and tests. So here are things, entities and tags and stuff that are part of that page. So you start building a page object. When you got that, you're building a page object test to actually test that this page here that we are running, it has the correct labels and stuff. So you're basically building your own functional test, basically becoming a regression test for your customization. I'll show you how you can run these also, and where you plug in your own. Basically,
we might not have time to go through the functional testing. We have 6 minutes left, so
yeah, it's all right. Basically, what you do, instead of using the regression testing profile, you use the functional testing profile. And I can just show you where you're going to add your test in here, so it's not too. Let's see what it is, if I can remember it now.
We go in share amp source tests.
Test resources, right? Yeah. So this is the file. So currently there's just one test. So if you start doing my pages here, you're gonna, when you created the page object test, you add it here, and when you use the functional testing profile, it's gonna kick off your test also. Okay, I think we are ready. So you can see here now it's kicking off Selenium WebDriver with the help of Firefox, and it's going to use, it's going to do the login test here now. Just verify that whatever you did build, that didn't break the login functionality. So it's basically doing what a tester normally would do, to functionally test the system but automate. So it's going to try a normal login and a fake login, and then end. Do some stuff here and then a fake login. That's basically the end of my demo. So it's pretty neat stuff.
Very neat stuff, and lots of positive feedback from IRC from the chat. One question we have is it possible to, oh, I lost my question. It was about making an umbrella project that involved installing multiple amps into the same WAR.
Yeah, I'm sure. There's even there's good documentation of that now these days. So go here, docs Alfresco, 501 developing, and Alfresco SDK 2.1 and advanced topics. So here you got linking standard Alfresco amps to an all-in-one, adding more custom amps to all-in-one, and there's 2 different approaches here. So everything is there. Let's go and read.
Very cool. I didn't know we had that section of the documentation. Learn something new every one of these.
It's brand new, and that's part of the effort of creating the SDK and being part of the product is to have proper documentation. I have just a few talking points left, and we have 3 minutes, so that's just perfect. So, of course, now that we have the 2.1 release out, we're not going to stop there. We're going to continue improving on the SDK. I think the first order of business right now is to look into the 1.2 release to have a compatible version with 4.2 that brings in all that nice hot reloading and everything. Unfortunately, we won't be able to bring in the CRPO stuff because that's depending on 5.0 and 5.01 5.0D packages. So we need to. We can't really do that. We are going to work with engineering department to get stuff fixed in the product to have, and instead of doing refresh web scripts when we compiled, the product should have a development mode that's sensible enough to detect these changes and just pick them up without having to clear any caches or refresh anything. So this should just work in the product. So that's stuff that we hope to take these hacks out of the SDK again once we have the functionality working just out of the box. We're going to continue improving the out-of-the-box experience, making it less painful and even easier to set up in your favorite IDE. We're going to continue improving the documentation. We're going to completely revamp the way we run the remote unit tests that I discussed. We didn't show them today, but we've shown them before. But the way you can run a unit test against a running repository, we got a great pull request from Bindu during the hackathon last year, and we just need to add some more work on that and have that in, and that changes the way we run those and make it more reliable and adds a lot more flexibility into it. We want to centralize more core features and start moving all the important bits and pieces into the Alfresco Maven plugin. Right now, everything is, this is very Maven technical, but we have a lot of stuff in the parent POM. And we want to start moving these things into the plugin so it's easier to reuse across different kinds of projects. The last thing is evangelizing. If you're not using the SDK, we want to know why. If it doesn't fit your use cases, we want to know what your use cases are and see how we can align with that. I'm not promising we can do everything, but we are really interested in hearing about those edge cases where it just doesn't fit your needs. And I think that is just about it. Any and that's 1 hour right there. Any last words?
We took questions as we were going through the session, so we won't take time for Q&A now. We need to wrap up, but I think exciting times. It's a lot of fun. I wish this stuff was around when I was first learning Alfresco. I need to spend some more time with it now. Anything you want to close with, Martin? I think Martin's still on mute.
Yeah, just go out there and check out the SDK. And as Ole said, if you're not using it, tell us why, and we'll try and fix so you start using it.
Yeah, excellent advice. And do remember that, so GitHub, on GitHub there's a project for the Alfresco team, or there's an Alfresco organization. In that Alfresco area is the source code in the project to participate on the SDK. We do accept community contributions. And there is also a separate project for SDK examples, which can show how you can apply SDK to your project. And at docs.alfresco.com, there's a whole section on developer documentation with lots of SDK docs. So hopefully that's useful for everybody. We're going to sign off. Next event, so the next things is the call for papers for Summit. Please get your presentations ready. We'll have Tech Talk Live the first Wednesday in June. We're working on office hours, and we got a couple of meetups going, so we'll get those on the calendar. Thank you. Nice talking to everybody.
Bye.